Welcome to the Just Ingredients podcast. I'm Cara Lynn, and here we talk all things nourishing to the mind, body, and soul. This is a place where you can find just good ingredients to life. Melissa Enger is an associate trichologist. She has been in the beauty industry for 25 years, but has spent the last 8 years of her career studying hair loss. She is a huge advocate for individuals finding the root cause of any type of hair loss and working to improve hair health as well as overall health with proper dietary changes, lifestyle changes, and supplementation based on proper blood work. Understanding and improving hair health is an absolute passion of hers. It is so fulfilling to help people understand their overall health and the impact it has on their hair. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today, I am so excited for this podcast episode. A lot of them are, for everybody else out there, but this one I'm intrigued on because it's about hair loss. And I just always find that fascinating, especially as I'm aging. And so my friend Melissa is on the podcast today. I actually met you, a few months ago. And you were telling me all the things about hair loss. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need you on my podcast. And so welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to do this.
Before we begin, will you just tell my listeners a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Melissa Enger. I am an associate trichologist. I've been in the beauty industry for 25 years next month. But for the last 8 years of my career, I have really focused on hair loss, the ins and outs. I could talk about it for hours. I know it like the back of my hand. I've been working exclusively with clients and posting on social media for the last 3.5, 4 years. And I'm a mom of 3. I'm a wife, and I'm excited to be on here.
Well, thank you. Like I said, I'm excited for you to be here, but you just told everybody that you're a trichologist. So what is trichology? That is not something I've heard a lot about.
Yeah, so trichology is the paramedical study of hair loss, and scalp disorders. So I'm not a physician, I am not a nurse, but we support the medical study of those 3 things. And we help people look for the root cause of hair loss, scalp disorders, helping them regrow their hair by evaluating certain things like their personal lifestyle, their diet, possible hormonal imbalances, nutrient deficiencies, environmental factors, really thoroughly going over issues that can be going on with someone as an individual that is leading to hair loss or maybe trouble regrowing hair after dealing with hair loss or just hair growth in general.
So interesting. That's not a common occupation that you hear about. And so that's really fascinating. So we're going to just jump right into it. And I'm going to just ask you, what's the most common causes or reasons for hair loss?
Okay, this is a great question. So most of the time when people start experiencing hair loss, they go to their doctor, and some people go to a dermatologist, some people talk to their gynecologist or their OBGYN, or even just their PCP, anybody who they, have built a good relationship with, and mention, I'm losing my hair. A lot of times they are diagnosed with alopecia. Alopecia is an umbrella term. So alopecia means hair loss. So yes, you will be diagnosed with alopecia, but the important thing is what type of alopecia do you have? So there are multiple types of hair loss, and there are subcategories of those types of hair loss. So to be able to really determine which type of hair loss you are experiencing helps you better improve your hair loss and regrow your hair more long term. So for years, we have been told, especially in the cosmetology and barbering industry, that androgenetic alopecia, often diagnosed as male or female pattern baldness, or referred to as genetic hair loss, is the most common type of hair loss. I think that information is outdated. I personally believe that diffuse alopecia, so that's the actual term, diffuse alopecia, and then there are 2 subcategories of diffuse alopecia. There's telogen effluvium and there's anagen effluvium. So telogen effluvium refers to the telogen phase of the hair's growth cycle. There are 5 cycles within the hair's growth cycle, but we often just refer to 3 of them. Telogen is the shedding phase, so telogen effluvium. And then there's also anagen effluvium. Anagen refers to the growing phase. So some people lose hair while they are actively in the growing phase as well. This type of hair loss has the most amount of causes. Some can be related to hormonal imbalances like thyroid or your cortisol, your stress hormones. It can be from your stress hormones and the way that those are being produced, but having a baby, psychological stress, illness, having surgery. It can be from gut health issues or liver function issues, vitamin deficiencies, and all of these things are commonly connected together. But within the last almost 4 years, I mean, really since COVID has been an issue, we've really seen an increase in people experiencing this type of hair loss, diffuse alopecia, telogen effluvium. So I personally believe that has become the most common type of hair loss. There's also alopecia areata, and there are subcategories of alopecia areata. Alopecia areata is hair loss in patches. Typically, it happens in the back of the head, behind the ear, sometimes down lower in the nape of the neck. And it's an autoimmune condition. The immune system is attacking healthy cells and the hair follicles. This is an autoimmune condition. These subcategories are alopecia totalis, which is all of the hair all over your head. And then there's also alopecia universalis, where you lose all of the hair all over your body. We also have traction alopecia. This is commonly caused from hairstyling, but there's also a big connection with what's going on internally as well. Oftentimes, when people are diagnosed with traction alopecia, they are told, just simply change up the way that you are styling your hair. But sometimes there's an issue with the way that the hair is regrowing. Typically around the hairline, there are common things that are connected to that as well. So it's a little bit more complex than just changing up your hairstyle. Obviously, you want to give the follicles a break and not have that constant tension. But there's a little bit more to it as far as the hair regrowing. Then we have scarring alopecia. There are 3 common, or the most common types of scarring alopecia: lichen planopilaris, frontal fibrosing alopecia, and CCCA. And then we can also see medicine-induced alopecia. And it depends on the medication and what the side effects are, what exactly it's doing to the body, but the actual cause is coming from the medication itself.
That's a lot of different terms for hair loss. I thought there were only a couple, so that's incredible. Okay, so let's talk about maybe just like common person, right? The average, let's say, woman. Where does hair loss most often occur on the head for them?
So one thing that I have come to discover in the last 8 years of studying hair loss, I have compiled my own data from meeting with clients one-on-one, messages and comments on videos, and I have compiled all of this information. So something that I have discovered in my professional experience is that different types of hair loss will present themselves in different areas of the head. So androgenetic alopecia, female pattern baldness, happens in a very particular area of the head. So it commonly starts on the hairline here. There is a scale that you can look up. It is called the Ludwig scale for women. This will show a true depiction of DHT-related hair loss. DHT is the underlying root cause of androgenetic alopecia. DHT is a derivative of testosterone, so it has a lot to do with androgens and how they are produced in the body. There's an enzyme in the body that will convert testosterone into DHT. So you can see your part lines start to get wider. It doesn't typically impact this very front part of the hairline in the very beginning. It's mostly that part line. This area will start to get thinner. And then as it progresses, it will travel back into the crown of the head and then closer to the hairline. Telogen effluvium, diffuse alopecia, also anagen effluvium will commonly happen around the hairline here. This can be related to your cortisol production, vitamin D deficiencies, and low ferritin specifically. Iron is important, saturation is important, but that iron storage that exists in the body pertains more to blood circulation, oxygenation of the blood, how that blood circulation is making it to the follicles. And it starts in the hairline, but as it progresses, so if you've never resolved the deficiencies themselves, you can see it start to travel throughout the hair. So you can see people that have been iron anemic for 10, 15 years that eventually all of their hair all over their head is now very thin, very fine. It makes a big impact on all of the hair, but it starts around the hairline. We can also see loss in the crown of the head from vitamin deficiencies and stress. When it's related to the thyroid or a significant imbalance in cortisol, typically that is all of the hair all over the head. People will often describe their hair loss as like their ponytail feels like it is getting smaller and smaller. They can't use the big claw clips anymore to hold their hair up. Those get smaller and smaller. So you feel the impact. All of the hair all over the head is becoming thinner and finer. Issues with alopecia areata, again, back of the head, below the crown, behind the ear, sometimes in the nape of the head. And alopecia totalis and universalis, again, totalis is all of the hair, eyelashes, eyebrows, all of the hair all over the head. And then universalis is all of the hair on the body. Traction alopecia is commonly around the hairline itself. And then scarring alopecia can resemble alopecia areata, but it is either diagnosed like CCCA happens on top of the head here, and then frontal fibrosing alopecia and lichen planiparus are patches that resemble alopecia areata, but they are typically diagnosed around the front hairline or this front hair, the front of your hairline up here. There's also some people that experience right on their part, they can have almost like a dime size circle where they are losing their hair. This is often connected to a specific type of PCOS. So there's 4 different types of PCOS. The most common is related to insulin resistance. The second most common used to be diagnosed as non-classic congenital adrenal hyperplasia. So there's congenital adrenal hyperplasia, which is diagnosed at birth. And then there's non-classic, which is onset. It happens later on in life. A common sign of this type of hair loss is a little patch that happens right here in front. Now, anything that's related to the hairline, the top of the head in women, doctors will usually automatically diagnose them with female pattern baldness. But if you look up that Ludwig scale, it is very distinct. It does not impact the front of that hairline until it has been going on for years and years and years. So when I work with clients and they start losing their hair right up here in front, I have them look at their cortisol levels, their DHEA, things that will show there's an issue with adrenal function, the way that they are producing stress hormones. Is their magnesium low? How do they feel on a daily basis? Are they having subclinical symptoms of adrenal fatigue? There is an enzyme that helps convert particular hormones into cortisol. It's called 21-hydroxylase, and hair loss related to non-classic congenital adrenal hyperplasia and then congenital adrenal hyperplasia are connected to a deficiency in that enzyme. So you can have compounds that build in the body. They mimic other hormones in the body. So you can start to see hair loss in this area. It's not technically related to DHT. It's more related to your stress hormones. So different areas of the head where hair loss is presenting can mean different things. And one thing that's important to note is a lot of times people start to notice hair loss as they're brushing their hair, as they're washing their hair. And there's almost this internal dialogue of, am I losing my hair? What is going on? No. Why would I be losing my hair? What is going on? When someone notices an area of their head is getting thinner, it is estimated that they have lost 40% of their hair in that area. Yes. So
That was a lot of info. So I want to take a few steps back and ask a few things so that people can maybe remember some of this. So you're saying a little dime size right before the part on your head, that's PCOS or adrenal issues or insulin resistance.
we'll really back it up here. Okay, so we've always been told that androgenetic alopecia, female pattern baldness, is genetic. If you go to your doctor and say, I'm experiencing hair loss and it's happening in this area of the head, this is getting so much thinner, most likely your doctor will ask you, do you have a family history? Do you have a family member or family members that have had hair loss? If you say, yeah, my grandpa, I have an aunt, a parent, a sibling, they will automatically say, oh, okay, it's probably genetic. 95% of hair loss that is going on is internal. Something is off internally. It's like chronic fatigue. It is a sign that your body is giving you that something is off. One thing that does not get checked regularly is fasting insulin. We often look at glucose or A1C. Your A1C is a 3-month average of your glucose. I cannot tell you the amount of people that have fasting insulin through the roof, which would indicate insulin resistance, but their glucose is normal or their A1C is normal. So if you're not checking your fasting insulin, you can't properly diagnose androgenetic alopecia. It's just assumed that it is genetic. When you have insulin resistance, you have this buildup of insulin in the body. There are receptors on almost every one of our cells for insulin. When you eat something that spikes your glucose, those receptors are supposed to turn on. The pancreas will start to produce insulin to help you lower your glucose. It's almost like doors on your cells that open. There's a doctor in Ohio. He's a fertility specialist. His name is Dr. Carnitis. In his practice, he has discovered that there are these doors. Now, some people can have a genetic issue that makes their hinges on their doors a little rusty, but we're supposed to have this response, this communication that turns on, where these doors open, our cells intake insulin to help bring our glucose down. When you have insulin resistance, your glucose will stay higher. That insulin response will be more continuous, and insulin will build in the body. It becomes stagnant. It is converted into androgens. It can lead to issues with inflammation. When you have an increased amount of testosterone, that can be converted into DHT, which leads to hair loss in this area, your part line. Your part line feels like it's getting wider. If you work to improve your insulin sensitivity and reduce the amount of insulin that the pancreas is constantly producing through diet, maybe you choose to go the medication route, maybe it's supplementation, but if you work to improve your insulin sensitivity, that stagnant amount of insulin will reduce. And so your testosterone will improve, your DHT levels will improve. And this is the most common type of PCOS is related to insulin resistance. Then we have a type of PCOS that is related to the adrenals. So this non-classic adrenal hyperplasia, it can be an overgrowth of tissue in a layer of the adrenals where it is overproducing cortisol. Typically, DHEA can be high when you have issues with cortisol. But there's some disruption in the way that cortisol is being produced in the HPA axis, that is our hypothalamus, our pituitary, and our adrenals, this axis between glands that helps activate your fight or flight or helps put you back into rest and digest. There's an important enzyme called 21 hydroxylase that helps with the conversion of ACTH. That is the hormone that the pituitary uses to communicate with the adrenals, and then cortisol production. If you work to improve the production of that enzyme, then hair loss that happens right along the hairline here, when you have like that dime size amount that's missing, that can improve long term. If you work to support your adrenals and reduce your DHEA production, calm your cortisol production, make sure that you are in rest and digest more than you are in fight or flight. That can help to improve this type of hair loss here, but then also hair loss that happens around your hairline as well.
It really comes down to getting your blood sugar levels balanced and not having this insulin resistance and managing your stress. So those two are huge key factors in hair loss, which you don't really hear about that often. But now it makes sense because you do hear people say like, oh, that year was such a stressful year and I lost so much of my hair. And so that, again, is due to the cortisol issue that you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah. So anytime somebody is diagnosed with diffuse alopecia or telogen effluvium, it is estimated that we lose between 30 and 70% of our hair. Now, in some cases, it's inevitable. If you go through a really difficult period, let's say you go through the loss of a loved one, a significant psychological stress, this will lead to a definite imbalance in the way that you are producing cortisol. We normally get a break from cortisol production while we are asleep. So sometimes it's just as simple as you're keeping that cortisol production up. Anytime that your doctor says, oh, this is related to stress, and they recommend working on your sleep habits, this is why we're wanting to calm that cortisol production at night. We're wanting to improve that. When the body is dealing with a cortisol imbalance, there are particular functions in the body that would be put on hold. The body is in fight or flight. It will focus on your cortisol production. Insulin production, your blood sugar, that's another one. I mean, there are major things: cortisol production, insulin resistance, inflammation in the body. There are major things that should be worked on in the very beginning. Let's work to improve these first. Then let's address, are there vitamin deficiencies? Can we improve the gut health? You can spend thousands and thousands of dollars on doctor's appointments, supplements, medications, blood work, all of these things. If there is an issue with your cortisol imbalance, your insulin production, if there's inflammation in the body, a lot of these things that you're doing to work to improve things can be a bit of a waste, because the body will put so many things on hold because it is so focused on, why is he or she stuck in fight or flight? What is going on? I'm not sure, but we're just going to continuously produce cortisol because that's what we know how to do.
Yeah, I heard an interesting analogy the other day of someone saying, it's like you're sitting on 5 thumbtacks. That would really hurt. But if you only get rid of one of the thumbtacks, meaning maybe you improve your diet, but the other 4 are still the cortisol and you're stressed and fight or flight. If you just remove one or improve one, you're still hurting. You still have 4 other thumbtacks that you're on. And so the same analogy, you can improve your diet and take all these medicines or supplements and go to doctors and spend thousands of dollars. But if you still have the 4 thumbtacks you're sitting on, or the that stress and cortisol going like crazy, it's not going to do much. Same thing,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I want to know though, because people are like, okay, I have thinning hair, I've lost hair. Okay, I understand I need to manage my stress better. I need to maybe look at my blood glucose levels better. But let's talk about these nutrients, because these like hair supplements are huge on the market and everybody's saying you need to take these supplements. So maybe we just talk through some of these supplements, and can they really help with hair regrowth? And so, well, first of all, maybe I should ask you that. Can you improve your hair regrowth after you've lost a lot of hair or your hair is thinned?
Yes, absolutely. So the rule of thumb for diffuse alopecia or telogen effluvium, we're always told it will last about 100 days. And I made a video about this the other day. I think that information is outdated. And we've seen that in the last 4 years, where so many people have been diagnosed with chronic telogen effluvium. But if it's only lasting 100 days, or typically that's how long it's supposed to last, why is it continuous? Why are people experiencing hair loss for years and years and years? Because of specific causes of this type of hair loss, like vitamin deficiencies. If you're not ever working to resolve those vitamin deficiencies, your hair loss will be continuous. If you never work to improve your thyroid function, this hair loss can be continuous. If there's issues with your gut health, if there's issues with your liver function, hair loss can be continuous. So the very best place to start when it comes to finding the root cause of your hair loss is very specific blood work. And oftentimes people will go to their doctor and say, okay, I want to have these things checked. And I don't know if the connection hasn't been made in some aspects of Western medicine, but there are very specific things to look at. When it comes to nutrients, iron and saturation are important. Yes, your ferritin, your iron storage is more important. Vitamin D is a big one, B12, folate, zinc, and magnesium. These are the most common deficiencies that will lead to long-term issues. B12 and folate, if you are deficient in those long enough, it will lead to issues with iron anemia. So those are very important B vitamins. For some people, they can have an issue with MTHFR. They can have one or more of those mutations. They can have one copy or double copies of one or more of these mutations. So for them specifically, certain vitamin supplementation is required. They need a methylated and active form of these vitamins. They have lost their ability to methylate things. That's why your liver complex is such a big deal, because it helps support that methylation process that happens in the liver. Your iron is important. If you still have a period, if you're still menstruating, you should shoot for 18 milligrams of iron a day. And through our food is always best with any nutrient. That's where you want to start. Are you eating whole foods? Are you eating plenty of fiber, plenty of protein, fruits and vegetables? Are you getting the majority of your nutrients through your diet alone? Then let's move into supplementation and fill in holes and gaps where they might be. When it comes to vitamin D helps nurture and support stem cells that are located in the hair follicle in an area known as the hair bulge. These stem cells are responsible for growing new hair. They are rapidly regenerating cells. Those are what regrow your hair once you've left the shedding phase and re-entered the growing phase. So oftentimes people will go to their doctor and their doctor will check their vitamin D and say, oh, you're a little low in vitamin D. It's actually a really big issue when people are deficient in vitamin D. Another issue that comes up is the range in blood work that was determined by a lab will have a pretty big range when it comes to certain vitamins and minerals. So let's say your vitamin D came back at a 36. In order to effectively support those stem cells in your follicles, your vitamin D should be between 50 and 80. So technically you're within range, but me as a trichologist, I would consider you a little deficient in vitamin D if it came back at a 36. The same thing happens with your ferritin. The range for ferritin in lab work is really, really big. It depends on the lab. Typically it's anywhere from 10 to 15 to 150 to 200. So let's say your ferritin came back at 40. You're technically within range, but when it comes to blood circulation and oxygen and nutrients reaching your follicles, ideally your ferritin should be between 80 and 100. And the percentage of people dealing with hair loss in this area or in the crown specifically that have normal, ideal levels of ferritin, it's maybe 10% of people. Most people have very low ferritin. Magnesium plays a big role in stress. So anytime that you deal with stress, your adrenals will burn through magnesium at a very rapid rate, making you more deficient. Now, in blood work, the range for magnesium is commonly maybe 1.0 to 3.0. There are a lot of functional medicine doctors that would respectfully argue that number and suggest that being closer to 6 is ideal. And magnesium is responsible for hundreds of chemical processes in the body, one of them being going from fight or flight to rest and digest. So if you're dealing with consistent cortisol production and you are burning through magnesium and you don't consume a lot of magnesium-rich foods, or you don't supplement with the right type of magnesium, this will make you deficient. This will keep you in fight or flight. Zinc is important because zinc is one of those minerals that helps with the conversion of thyroid hormones in the liver. So a zinc deficiency is a big deal, but it is more because it will impact the way that you are converting those hormones in the liver. Selenium is also a big one as far as aiding in the conversion of thyroid hormones, but we typically don't look at selenium, just those B12, folate, iron, saturation, ferritin, magnesium, and zinc when it comes to nutrients.
Wow, that's amazing. And when you're talking about vitamin D and that being one of the reasons for the thinning or the hair loss around the face, your hairline and the crown, over 50% of Americans are deficient in vitamin D. And so I know that hair loss is a huge thing for women. Women are constantly, my hair is thinning, and you hear it all the time. And I'm like, listening to you, okay, it could be your vitamin D. And then, like you said, so many women are stressed, and it can be that adrenal issue, or it can be that you're low in magnesium, which is contributing to the adrenal issue. It can be the insulin resistance, like you were talking about. So there's so many things, which is fascinating.
So the majority of people are dealing with more than one type of hair loss at one time. And an example of this that we can see is if you have insulin resistance, if you have higher glucose levels, the liver over time will start to convert excess glucose into fat. The likelihood of somebody developing a fatty liver when they have insulin resistance is rather high. If you develop a fatty liver and this changes your liver function, the liver is responsible for so many important functions in the body. But we store fat-soluble vitamins and minerals in the liver. So if there's an issue with your liver function, let's say it impacts the way that your liver is producing bile. This leads to a change in the way that you are breaking down fat in your small intestine. So fat enters our small intestine like a giant droplet. We rely on bile production to break down that giant droplet into thousands and thousands of tiny droplets. So a little droplet of fat adheres to a fat-soluble vitamin or mineral, and then we absorb it in the body. We also store it in the liver. So if there's any type of impact on your liver, this will impact vitamin levels. So when I talk to somebody that has been deficient in vitamin D for years, and they have supplemented for years, but their numbers don't go up, there's a couple of red flags for me. First of all, what type of vitamin D are you taking? Is it a readily available source? Is the source cholecalciferol? Do you spend time in the sun? If you are in the sun, are you constantly applying sunblock? Are you blocking the benefits of absorbing vitamin D from the sun? The sun is the very best source of vitamin D. Next, what is your liver function like? To me, this screams it is either the type of vitamin D that you are taking, or there's a liver function issue that is disrupting your storage. If you've had your gallbladder removed and this has impacted bile production and the way that you are breaking down fat, it is very common for people that no longer have a gallbladder to be deficient in things like vitamin D and iron, to have low ferritin levels. So when you have insulin resistance, if it has impacted your liver function, you will experience androgenetic alopecia, female pattern baldness, but you could also experience diffuse alopecia or telogen effluvium due to low vitamin levels. Cortisol and insulin work hand in hand with one another. The organs in our body the glands in our body communicate with one another using hormones, and these hormones often go hand in hand. We see this in the HPA axis that I mentioned earlier. That system in our endocrine system that activates our fight or flight, there's also an OAT axis. So that is our ovaries, our thyroid, and our adrenals. So some of these things work in conjunction, or they work in harmony with one another. So if there's an imbalance in your cortisol, this can also impact your thyroid. This can also impact your ovaries. So when someone goes into their doctor and they say, okay, this area of my head is getting really thin, or my ponytail is getting smaller, and their doctor says, okay, let me look at your scalp. Do you have a family history? It's probably genetic. That's most likely androgenetic alopecia. If you are not doing thorough blood work, you won't figure out the root cause of what is going on. And the goal should be, how can we be most successful long-term at improving not only loss, but then let's create a healthy environment internally to regrow your hair also, but then also to grow your hair in general.
Let's take a quick break to hear from our show sponsor. It's time to celebrate. The Just Ingredients birthday sale is coming up on July 10th through the 12th, and this is our biggest sale of the year. All products and even subscriptions will be 20% off. Plus, we are releasing 11 new products: an anti-inflammatory complex, berberine, creatine, magnesium, omega-3s, and our complex, vitamin D3, and fun new mixes for pancakes, muffins, and even French onion soup. We've also integrated a new wish list system on our website so you can have your carts prepped and ready to go. All you need to do is add the new products right before checkout. Get ready for the birthday sale from June 10th through the 12th at justingredients.us for 20% off all products site-wide. Now back to the show. Okay, I've got a lot of questions about what you just said. So let's back up to the liver. A lot of people's livers today are overburdened with toxins, environmental toxins, beauty products they're using, food that they're eating, pesticides, medicines, you name it. And so is that what you're also talking about? Is that these livers are overburdened, therefore they can't do all that they need to do with the vitamins and processing them, and therefore our hair takes a backseat to this?
Yes, absolutely. So when you look into healthy liver function, the liver is a fascinating organ. The responsibility that the liver has in the body is huge. It is a very important organ. It is constantly filtering out toxins in the body. It is meant to produce bile, which helps us break down fat in the small intestine. It helps us go to the bathroom. If you have a bile deficiency, you will commonly experience constipation. In doing one-on-one consultations with people, that is the first question that I ask. What is your gut health like? Do you struggle with constipation or diarrhea? If somebody has an issue with constipation, we're going to take that and put a pin in it. We're going to come back to that. What is your liver function like? How are you producing bile? We also rely on the liver to help with removing glucose from the body. So there's toxicity levels and there are sugar levels, and the liver is always filtering those out. If the liver is overburdened, and it can come from your environment, it can come from things that you are topically using on your skin. It is estimated that anything we put on our skin is absorbed after 30 seconds. So if you're using something that is potentially high in endocrine disruptors, the liver will view that as a toxin. It's just something else added to the list of things that the liver has to filter out. Our lymphatic system is our body's sewer system. It drains from two main points, our armpits and our groin. And that drains into our abdominal cavity. We rely on our liver and our kidneys to filter those things out. If there is poor liver function or poor kidney function, we'll see an issue with the way that the body is detoxifying. If there's an issue with the way that you are producing bile and breaking down fat in your small intestine, you can see that impact in your hair, in your skin. You can have very dull, dry hair, a change in the texture, the appearance, the manageability of your hair. You're more prone to tangles and breakage, because while water is very, very important for a healthy body, fats are very important. Fatty acids, they're very important. Healthy fats, and properly breaking those down and absorbing them. So if we help support liver function, it's like a domino effect. There are so many things that can improve. A great example of this is estrogen dominance. There are two channels in the liver that help with how we get rid of excess estrogen. One channel will send estrogen the correct way down through the bowels. We get rid of excess estrogen when we poop. Another channel will send estrogen back through the body and it recirculates, and eventually it can build up, leading to estrogen dominance. If you help support healthy liver function the way that you are going to the bathroom, this can help with the way that the liver is detoxifying the body, the way you're producing bile, the way you synthesize hormones in the liver, the way you store fat-soluble vitamins and minerals. So while hair loss can be connected to certain deficiencies, the root potentially of the issue that is going on can be their liver function.
That makes sense. That was a really good explanation. Okay, so I want to go back because you touched upon so many deficiencies. I mean, you talked about the B12 and the folate and the vitamin D and the iron and the zinc. I mean, we've got all of those. But now I do want to ask you, because I know listeners are going to want to know, you hear a lot about collagen and biotin. Are they really helpful to the hair or not really?
Yes, 1,000%. So collagen production decreases as we age. It can decrease depending on our gut health. It can decrease depending on our cortisol production. If you are constantly producing cortisol, it will eat away at your collagen production. If you are dealing with a high amount of cortisol in the body, you will also burn through vitamin C at a very rapid rate. Vitamin C is absolutely necessary for collagen production. The hair is made of specific things: protein, amino acids, and fatty acids. Collagen is a great protein source. It helps with the production of healthy hair from the root, but then also it helps to maintain healthy skin, follicles, even the lining of our intestines. There's so many benefits to a good collagen, but it needs to be a good source, a partially hydrolyzed collagen. I'm a huge fan of your collagen. Anytime that collagen is coming from a bovine source, we really need to make sure, and this feels so surreal talking to you about this, because anytime I go live and we talk about collagen, all we talk about is your collagen, because your standards are so high when it comes to your bovine source. I always talk about how you source things from New Zealand because they have the highest standards when it comes to a bovine source. You really need to do your homework on where's the collagen coming from, what type of collagen is it? Because if you're taking a whole molecule of collagen, you won't actually absorb it and utilize it in the body. So we're trying to aid in the production of things. We're trying to support the body so it can better do what it is naturally designed to do. And if collagen production declines as we age, or based on certain things going on with our health, it can be so beneficial to utilize collagen. It's in my mug right now. And a lot of people will argue, even when it comes down to like a multivitamin, a lot of people will argue, I eat really well. There's other things that you have to factor in. What type of food are you buying? Maybe it doesn't fit in your budget to buy organic foods. Maybe where you live, produce that's available, maybe it you don't have a wide variety just based off of where you live. So even though some people eat really, really well, there still can be nutritional gaps. So I personally believe that everyone would benefit from a good multivitamin. If it is a real food multivitamin, that's even better. Ingredients matter. What was the other thing you mentioned? Collagen and
biotin.
Biotin. Okay, biotin is a good one, because you will have some people that say, no, biotin doesn't impact your hair. And then you have some people that say, absolutely, yes, it does. It absolutely does. It doesn't make your hair grow faster, but biotin is absolutely necessary for the synthesis of things like fatty acids. And it's interesting, if you look up a biotin deficiency, the information that you will find says that biotin deficiencies are very rare. But you have to have a healthy gut microbiome in order to properly break down and absorb biotin. The same thing goes for B12 and your stomach acid. So if your gut health, if your gut microbiome is off, if you don't have high amounts or a healthy population of good bacteria in your gut, if you don't provide fiber for your microbiome to feed off of, there's any disruption in the health of your microbiome, this will impact the way that you are actually utilizing biotin. And so that impact with fatty acids, it goes back to that change in the texture of your hair. Its appearance, it's very dull and frizzy and dry and more prone to breakage. Now, when you see biotin used in certain products topically, there's a lot of companies, even professional companies, in the last little while that have started to increase biotin in shampoos and or conditioners. It doesn't work like that. That absorption, the benefit that we see from biotin happens in the gut. And if you look at all of the people currently that have autoimmune conditions with their gut, diverticulitis, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, IBS, even just issues that are maybe undiagnosed with constipation and diarrhea, this will absolutely impact biotin absorption. And biotin falls into that category of other B vitamins where if it's a readily available source, that is better. There are so many people that deal with issues with MTHFR and have no idea. And so they'll just grab whatever supplement is the cheapest. If it is a readily available source when it comes to B vitamins, they are easily absorbed in the body. The body recognizes them and says, oh, okay, I needed you. I often refer to B vitamins as a whole as the Amazon workers of the body. So you have different parts of the body that are like, hey, I need this. Most of the time, it's a B vitamin that makes that connection. And we don't make B vitamins or vitamin C in the body. So we either have to get them from our food or we have to get them from supplementation.
I love that analogy as the Amazon workers for the B vitamins.
They're pulling orders.
That's right. Okay, I love, though, this talk about the gut because you were talking about, well, you need good gut health to absorb your biotin, but it's not just to absorb your biotin, it's to absorb all of those nutrients that is needed for the hair. And so it's interesting to me because we talk about gut health all the time with your skin, right? I've had many dermatologists on here talking about, you need to work on your gut to have better skin. But I feel like it's not talked about as much that you need that gut health to be good too for good hair.
Yes. And these are things that you have touched on personally, in videos that you have done, in podcasts that you have done. The majority of absorption is happening in the gut. Our gut is divided. When we are in utero, it's divided from the same cell as our brain. This is why it's often referred to as the second brain. We have the same amount of neurotransmitters in our brain that we do in our gut. The lining of our intestines is one cell thick. So often we refer to the skin around our eyes as being very thin. It's very delicate. We have to be very careful when we're, applying products to the skin around our eyes. This skin is 15 cells thick. So in comparison to the lining of the intestines, it is very, very thin. And you can see a disruption in the health of the lining of your intestines from too much sugar, medications, from stress. Very, very common things that we interact with on a daily basis can tear up the lining of the intestines. This can lead to issues with leaky gut. It can lead to that autoimmune response. It can lead to inflammation. If you do not have a diverse microbiome, so if you don't eat foods that are rich in active strains, if you're not a huge fan of fermented foods, if you have been on antibiotics, this is meant to wipe out bad bacteria. It will also impact good bacteria. So if you don't work to repopulate your gut, and then again, fiber comes into play as a prebiotic. Fiber is necessary for those microbes to feed off of. So if you're not feeding your strains, and if you're not getting a very diverse amount of strains, over time, this will have a huge impact on your microbiome, which can impact many other things, but absorption, that's a big one.
Yeah, you're spot on. That is so right. Okay, I have two questions, though, that I know people will want to know. First of all, I hear a lot because, some people will know, okay, it's nutrition, nutrients, things like that play a part in the hair. But then people will say to me, but, I'm aging and it's just part of aging. And as we age, our hair thins. So there's nothing really I can do. So true? A myth? What do you say about that comment?
Not always. So there are things that will come into play, yes. Things that collagen, again, is a good example of this. Things that we can produce or we have an easier time supporting the production of while we are younger. Yes, as we age, that starts to diminish. But you can't just assume that a woman that has gone through menopause goes into her doctor and says, okay, my hair is thinner. A lot of times it will just be, you're just getting older. It's your age. You've gone through menopause. Yes, your sex hormones come into play when it comes to your hair, but you cannot just assume that that is it. We see this happen a lot with androgenetic alopecia, or what is known as genetic hair loss, that it's genetic. There's not anything that you can do about it. If you're not having proper blood work done to check off all of the boxes, then you are potentially missing root causes. And this happens all the time where people are just told, oh, it's probably genetic. They don't do anything about it. When in reality, it's coming from something like insulin resistance. They could have worked to improve that. It could have reduced their shedding. They could have regrown a lot of their hair that had been lost for all of those years. But if you're not having proper blood work done, you can't get to the root cause of that problem. So yes, we can see a decline in hormone production as we age, but that doesn't mean that that is going to be the main or only cause of your hair loss. It really, truly is important to look at your liver function, your gut health, the nutrients that you're intaking. What is your sleep hygiene like? Just like we have an oral hygiene, we have a sleep hygiene, that cortisol imbalance. When hormone production slows in the ovaries, some of that responsibility is then put on the adrenals. So how well are you supporting your adrenals? I am a huge fan of your adrenal complex for that reason. Any way that you can work to support your adrenals in general, no matter your age, this can improve everything exponentially. Your hair growth or reduction in shedding. But yes, to answer your question, yes, some things decline, and the same thing goes for men. You can't just assume that a man's hair loss is coming from an issue with DHT. All of these things apply to men as well. Gut health, liver function, autoimmune issues, leaky gut, insulin resistance, cortisol production, all of these things apply to men as well. And again, it doesn't matter what your age is.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so is there, though, a certain amount of hair that women can shed like per month and it's normal? So women shouldn't freak out about some shedding?
Yes. So on average, it's estimated that we lose 50 to 100 hairs a day. Now, some people, it will be closer to 50. Some people, it's closer to 100. When we start to see an increase in shedding, there's that panic attack of, oh my goodness, I'm losing my hair. It is estimated that a woman's hair is 50% of her self-esteem. It really is a big deal when a woman starts losing her hair. But something to keep in mind as people are dealing with shedding, oftentimes they won't brush their hair. They won't wash their hair on a regular basis. They'll wear it in a ponytail or maybe up in a messy bun on top of their head. And they wash their hair every 5 to 7 days, where before it was every 2 to 3 days. You're still shedding those hairs. And if you're not brushing your hair, if you're not washing it on a regular basis, the next time you do go to shampoo your hair, all of those hairs that you have shed over the last 5 to 7 days will come out at once. And then that starts up that panic attack of, oh my gosh, it's not getting any better. It's really hard not to hyperfixate on the amount of hair that you are losing. And I see this a lot in people that are sharing their hair loss or hair regrowth journeys on social media, where they will collect their hair. They will put it in a pile, in their bathroom, on the shower wall, but they are keeping track. Some people even go as far to count their hairs each day that they have shed. I understand the need for comparison, the need to see if it is improving, but you're hyper fixating on it, which even if you're not feeling it up here or in here, on a cellular level, that is making that stress response worse. And so it's easier said than done if your hair loss is connected to stress, to just, you gotta calm down and not stress about it. A lot of times when people go to their doctor and their doctor says, oh, this is probably connected to stress, you just have to reduce your stress. I'm sorry, what does that mean? Like, how do you want people to just all of a sudden like, oh, okay, I'm not going to worry about me feeling like I'm going bald. Okay. Instead of just saying, we'll just calm down about it, let's actually give you real solutions that will help improve things, like magnesium. I'm really excited about your magnesium, by the way.
It's an amazing one that's coming out.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. So there's different types of magnesium. They all do different things in the body. Magnesium glycinate and bisglycinate are very calming. They work to calm the body down. So utilizing specific types of magnesium about an hour before you go to bed, utilizing your adrenal complex, adaptogenic herbs that are meant to support adrenal function, can help calm down that stress response. Vitamin C, getting healthy amounts of vitamin C. In the last 4 years, there are a lot of functional medicine doctors that have come out saying the amount of stress that we deal with on a regular basis, most people would benefit from taking closer to 200, and some people even go as high as 1,000 milligrams a day of vitamin C, because it is so supportive to the adrenal glands. Some doctors have recommended melatonin, plant-based melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone that is produced in the pineal gland. We also make it in our cells, mitochondria. It is the strongest antioxidant that the body makes. Glutathione, that's produced in the liver, that is the second strongest antioxidant. NAC is in your liver complex. NAC is the precursor to glutathione. Any way that you can help support antioxidant production in the body, or supplementing with magnesium, vitamin C, adaptogenic herbs, working on your sleep habits. It's almost like sleep training a baby, where you create this bedtime routine for yourself, setting a bedtime for yourself, waking up at the same time every morning, spending time in the sun first thing in the morning is fantastic for regulating your circadian rhythm. The darker and cooler your room is at night, great for cortisol and balancing that production. Blue light blocking glasses in the evening, fantastic for blocking that blue light. Blue light will stimulate your hypothalamus, that control tower in the brain, similar to the way that the sun does. I switch my phone to red light instead of blue light, and then I'll utilize blue light blocking glasses. Serotonin production, 95% of that happens in the gut. That goes back to a healthy microbiome. Are you taking a probiotic? What is your diet like? There are lots of things that you can do to improve that cortisol response, that stress response. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where this overproduction of cortisol will take precedence over everything else. I mean, that should be one of your main focuses. So instead of just simply saying, oh, this is coming from stress, you just got to calm down. Those are very specific things that you can work on to help reduce the impact that stress has on your body on a cellular level.
So fascinating. I mean, it just shows that the whole body works together. It's not just one little piece here and one little piece here. It's all very interconnected, and it shows in our hair. And so as we wrap up here, can you just give the listeners like a time frame, meaning how long does it take to really regrow hair? Are we looking at months? Are we looking at years? What do you say?
So when it comes to regrowth itself, a lot of people can see an improvement in regrowth in as little as a month. So we grow our hair on average about a half an inch a month. So you'll start to see little baby hairs that start to grow. When you see those baby hairs grow, it's very motivating to, okay, I'm going to nurture my body. I'm going to make sure that my blood circulation to the scalp is very good. I'm going to make sure that my blood is as nutrient dense as I can possibly make it, whether it is through dietary changes or supplementation. When it comes to the reduction of hair loss, it depends on what the root causes, and that goes back to blood work. Anytime you see a supplement that is marketed as this is a one pill fix all, no, that's marketing.
Yeah.
You have to figure out what is going on internally. Ideally, or a realistic amount of time would be between 3 and 6 months. Improving liver function is a good example of this. A lot of times on social media, we can see a liver cleanse. This take the weekend, take 3 to 5 days to improve your liver function. It doesn't work like that. You have to make dietary changes, lifestyle changes. And there are certain things that you can do to improve liver function. It takes time. You have to be patient with it, and you have to be consistent. So I think 3 to 6 months is a reasonable amount of time to expect an improvement in shedding. But as far as regrowth goes, within 1 month, if you have very nutrient-rich blood and you have proper blood circulation going to the scalp, you can see a good amount of regrowth happen just after 1 month. And it is very common for people to see new hairs growing in, but they're still shedding their hair. That's because you're not tackling the root cause.
Okay, makes sense. That's good to know, though, for time frame. I know we need to wrap up, but I do have one last question. I keep saying one last question multiple times, but this is the last one. Because it's summertime and it's hot out, I hear a lot of, oh, my hair is so dry and brittle in the summer, and I just need electrolytes. That's it. But they need more than just electrolytes, right? Your hair being dry is not just due to dehydration, correct?
No. So there's a couple of things when people, even if it's just simply my hair feels more dry, or people have noticed a distinct change in the texture of their hair. And sometimes it can happen out of the blue, where all of a sudden it's like, okay, my hair used to be this long, now it's this long. Like I brush it and it just breaks off. Something's going on. There's a couple of things that I look into. First of all, what is your consumption of healthy fats? How many omega-3s do you get? There are 4 different types of omegas, 3, 6, 7, and 9. Most of us get a lot of omega-6 because of the amount of hydrogenated oils are in processed foods. Most of us would benefit from increasing or making sure that we get plenty of omega-3 specifically. There was a study that was done years ago that some women took a placebo, some women took omega-3s. All of the women that were taking omega-3s saw an increase in the diameter of their hair after this study was over, just from omega-3s alone. So are you consuming enough healthy fats? Is there an issue with your stomach acid? Are you on any type of medication, whether it's over the counter or a prescription, that is impacting the amount of stomach acid that you are producing? You have to have healthy amounts of stomach acid and a healthy pH in order to properly break down protein and amino acids. Protein and amino acids are absolutely essential for growing healthy hair from the root. And then also, what is your liver function like? Are you properly producing bile? Are you breaking down fat in your small intestine? A good way to check if you need more healthy fats is to look at your heels. If your heels are dry, if they cracked, your body is screaming, I need healthy fats. I need more omega-3. Your protein powder, your chia source of protein, great source of omega-3s. There are lots of options when it comes to food or supplementation as far as getting plenty omega-3s, but it has more to do with internally, are you getting enough fats? Are you properly breaking them down and absorbing them? Another thing to consider is silicones that are used in products. Even when a company is using what they consider healthy silicones, so water-based silicones, it's still a silicone. The most common type of silicone that's used in products is dimethicone, and it's used to smooth down the hair. So let's say you have an issue with healthy fats internally. This has changed the quality of the hair that you are growing. So you start using a smoothing product that is high in dimethicone to help smooth down your hair shaft. This will create a barrier which prevents moisture and or protein from penetrating your hair. So clean shampoos and conditioners that don't contain silicones can remove that barrier from the hair. You can better absorb moisture and or protein depending on your hair's needs. A great option is your scalp oil. Jojoba oil is the closest to our skin's sebum. It very closely mimics our skin's own natural oil. It is very rich in fatty acids, and there are long chain fatty acids and short chain. Short chain are like building blocks. They help build the microbiome that's on our skin. We have a layer on our skin called our acid mantle. It's made of things like sweat and bacteria. Just like we have a microbiome in our gut, we have a microbiome on our skin. So those short chain amino acids or fatty acids help support our skin's microbiome. The long chain fatty acids, it's like hyaluronic acid. It helps pull in moisture. So even using your scalp oil on the ends can be really beneficial for drier ends that people can experience in the summertime.
Oh my goodness. I could now ask you about shampoos and conditioners and washing your hair. We might just have to have you on for a part 2. Because
I would love that.
I know the listeners still have a ton of questions, and you are so knowledgeable about all of this stuff. And so tell my listeners where they can come follow you, where they can find you to learn more about all of the things dealing with hair.
So the majority of my videos I post on TikTok and Instagram. My handle is MA Brows and Hair. So it's my initials, Melissa Anger, MA Brows and Hair. I go live a lot on TikTok, and I will be on for, like, the last time I went live, I was on for 5 hours. And
oh my goodness.
Questions over and over. Give me your questions. I love talking about this. I love explaining things. I'm a very left brain person. So I want facts, I want understanding, and I want to be able to explain it to where it clicks, to where people have that realization of, oh, okay, so this is connected to this. If I improve this, these things will improve and my hair will grow, or it becomes healthier, or my shedding will decrease. So the majority of the videos that I make about hair loss and hair growth are found on Instagram and TikTok.
You are such a wealth of knowledge. So if you're listening and want to know more about your hair, I promise she has so many great videos, like she said, and so many little tidbits and things that are really fascinating. So give her a follow. And I always end my podcast with asking my guests what they have found to be the best ingredient in life. What would you say it is?
Okay, listen, that's to pick one. Oh my God.
I know. When I did an episode myself, they asked me that question too. And I was like, I'll narrow it down to 3. I couldn't narrow it down to 1.
Yeah, that is very hard. I would say passion. No matter what you do in life, no matter what you have determined that your calling is in the grand scheme of things, what you were put on this earth to do it with passion. Make your voice heard. Be as knowledgeable as you can in whatever you are trying to do, and try to convey that in a way to where people feel what you're doing, whether it is a friend, a partner, your job, a mother or a father. I think when you become very passionate about what you do, that resonates with people.
I love that so much. It is the passion in us that drives us to do better and to do good for humanity and to help others. And so I love that, figuring out what your passion is and actually doing something with it. And so thank you so much, Melissa, for taking the time to be here and for teaching all of us so much about hair and how to treat our body and things like that. And I really appreciate you taking the time.
No, I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. Remember to subscribe to the Just Ingredients podcast to learn more about your health and good ingredients to life. Plus, get daily tips at just.ingredients on Instagram.